You were never broken. You just forgot how whole you already were. What if I told you that all this time your suffering wasn't because something in you needed fixing, but because you were taught to keep searching for a healing that was never necessary? The moment you believed that healing was the goal was the very moment you were pulled away from your essence. Think about it. How many times have you whispered to yourself, "I just need to heal this part of me, and then I'll finally be enough"? How many books, therapies, retreats, meditations, all leading to the same loop, the loop of not yet. You weren't born in need of repair. You were born in light. And it's not your pain that needs healing. It's your memory that needs awakening. This isn't about rejecting healing. It's about questioning why the search never ends. It's about realizing that maybe, just maybe, healing was never the destination. Remembering was. So before we go any further, ask yourself, what if there's nothing wrong with you at all? And if that feels strange, if a part of you resists even hearing that, then this message is for you. Because we're about to pull back the curtain on one of the most subtle illusions in the spiritual journey, the idea that you need to fix yourself before you can feel whole, worthy, or free. We're about to explore how that very belief might be keeping you stuck, looping, aching, and how to finally set yourself free, not by becoming someone new, but by remembering who you've always been. In the next section, we'll go deeper into the quiet suffering that hides behind this obsession with healing, the invisible weight of never feeling ready, and why that ache exists in the first place. The silent pain behind the obsession with healing. There's a kind of ache that doesn't scream. It doesn't show up in test results or therapy notes. It's quiet, persistent, and it whispers over and over again, "You're not there yet." This is the invisible weight carried by those who believe healing is a destination, some final glowing version of self, where pain no longer lives and the heart is finally enough. But what if that weight isn't your soul asking for healing? What if it's your conditioning, your programming, keeping you in a loop of never feeling quite whole? The more you chase the idea of fixing yourself, the more you anchor the belief that something in you is fundamentally broken. And that belief, it's not neutral, it vibrates, it shapes how you see yourself, how you love, how you connect, how you trust. Let me explain. Many of us spend years, decades even, going from one healing method to another. Therapy, coaching, inner child work, plant medicine, energy clearing. We patch, we mend, we unravel. But deep down, the same sentence lingers. There's still something wrong with me. And every time we say it, consciously or not, we reinforce a kind of emotional exile. We exile ourselves from the truth of our wholeness. From the memory that maybe we've never actually needed to be anything more than we are right now. You've seen it before. You just didn't know how to read it. That moment when you felt fully present, even for a second, and nothing needed to be changed. That was your truth speaking. That was the signal underneath the noise. Here's the process that often unfolds. You feel pain. You believe the pain means you're flawed. You seek healing. The search brings some relief, but not the wholeness. Why? Because the starting point was self-rejection, not self-remembrance. We live in a culture that teaches us to earn love by being better, heal more, meditate more, grow more, but that version of growth can become just another performance, a subtle rejection of the now. Now imagine this. What if instead of constantly asking, "What's wrong with me?" you asked, "What have I forgotten about who I truly am?" Let that question settle in. Feel its weight shift your inner dialogue. This isn't about abandoning healing. It's about remembering that the obsession with it often masks a deeper wound, the fear of never being enough. We're just getting started. Now we'll go even deeper, into the loop that keeps this belief alive. How an entire healing industry thrives on your sense of inadequacy and why you were never meant to be the patient, but the creator. the healing industry, and the inadequacy loop. There's a system, unseen but deeply embedded, that profits from your belief that you're not whole yet. It sounds radical. It might even feel uncomfortable. But stay with me, because the moment you internalize that healing is an endless journey. You unknowingly stepped into a cycle, not of transformation, but of inadequacy. You see, an entire industry was built not on your healing, but on your longing for it. Workshops, retreats, programs, coaching packages, sacred tools, crystal grids. Some of them are beautiful, some of them truly help, but many are designed to keep you reaching, not remembering. The loop works like this. You're promised relief, you invest, you feel temporary clarity, but soon the ache returns. And the answer? Another step, another level, another teacher. And quietly, a belief is cemented. I'm still not there. But what if the most powerful truth was hiding where you never thought to look? Let's bring in Dr. Bruce Lipton here. He reminds us that the environment shapes the cell, meaning it's not just what's happening in you, it's the field around you that defines your inner reality. And what is the environment of this healing loop? It's an ecosystem built on the vibration of lack. When you're surrounded by content, teachers, and communities that reinforce the idea that there's always another wound to fix, you start to forget that healing isn't the point. Presence is. Wholeness is. The remembering is. Let me give you a modern metaphor. Imagine a phone that keeps buzzing with update notifications. Every time you install one, there's another, and another. You spend your time managing updates, instead of using the phone for what it was designed to do. That's what happens when you stay stuck in healing mode. You manage your wounds, but forget to live. Here's what no one tells you. The most radical healing isn't about doing more. It's about stepping out of the role of the patient and reclaiming the identity of the creator. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not waiting for some final initiation to be complete. You were whole, then you were conditioned, and now you're being invited to remember. And that changes everything. Because when you stop identifying as someone who needs to be healed, you start living as someone who already carries the code of remembrance. Just now, we'll explore this deeper vibrational shift, the powerful difference between repairing and remembering, and how this simple reframe can change your emotional frequency, your self-image, and your entire spiritual path. Remembering versus repairing, the forgotten path. There's a sacred difference between trying to fix yourself and simply remembering who you are. It might not seem like much, just a subtle shift in words. But energetically, it's the difference between resistance and resonance. Repairing says, something here is broken. Remembering says, something here was hidden, and now it's returning. One keeps you trapped in the identity of the wounded. The other invites you back into the presence of your wholeness. Let's go even deeper. Dr. Joe Dispenza often speaks about how the body doesn't live in the past, unless you keep reminding it to. When you constantly revisit your pain, diagnose your patterns, or relive the wounds, you're not healing, you're rehearsing, and your nervous system, it listens, it stores, it vibrates based on what you expect to feel, not what's actually happening now. But what if, instead of repeating the pain, you reached back into the space before the pain ever began? Here's the image I want you to hold. Imagine a marble statue covered in dust and cobwebs. For years, you thought it was flawed, chipped, cracked, unfinished. You tried to repair it, add pieces, smooth the edges. But one day, you simply wiped it clean. And underneath all that effort, there it was, already perfect. That's what remembering feels like. You're not building a new self. You're uncovering the one that was buried beneath layers of forgetting. This is the forgotten path, the path that doesn't promise a better you, but a deeper return to you. And when you walk this path, healing becomes a byproduct, not a goal. You stop chasing symptoms, you stop hunting for signs, you start feeling the vibration of truth return to your cells, your breath, your gaze. Let me give you something tangible. Here's a simple practice. Close your eyes, breathe into your heart, and ask, what have I forgotten about myself that is ready to be remembered? Don't force an answer, just listen. That's the doorway. Now let's move into a shadow many of us have walked through, often without realizing it, the trap of spiritual performance, and how the pressure to appear healed can silently sabotage our deepest growth. The trap of spiritual performance. There's a quiet exhaustion that comes from trying to look like you've already arrived. And in today's spiritual world, full of curated peace and polished awakenings, that exhaustion runs deep. You smile in circles where everyone speaks of high vibration. You post affirmations you don't fully believe. You say, everything is energy. Even when your chest is tight, your thoughts are racing, and nothing makes sense. Because somewhere along the way, healing became a performance, and being spiritual became a brand. But what if the most awakened thing you could do was to stop pretending you're already whole and just let yourself be? Let me explain. In many spaces, we're told that to attract good things, you must vibrate high. So when grief comes, we hide it. When anger flares, we suppress it. When doubt knocks, we label it as low frequency. And what happens? You don't heal, you split. You separate from the truth of your emotional reality, and that disconnection, it doesn't elevate your frequency. It drains it. It's not the emotion that lowers your vibration. It's the shame you attach to feeling it. Real growth doesn't always look radiant. Sometimes it looks like crying on the floor in the middle of the night. Sometimes it looks like saying, I don't know anymore. That's not failure. That's not regression. That's honesty. That's sacred breaking. That's remembering. Because here's the truth, the universe doesn't respond to how perfect your performance is. It responds to the authenticity of your field. The pressure to seem healed creates tension in the body, filters in the mind, masks on the heart. It makes you disconnect from your own experience, and worse, it makes you doubt your progress. You were never meant to perform your healing. You were meant to live your wholeness, even when it's messy, raw, or uncertain. Let me bring this home with something practical. Next time you're tempted to say, I'm fine, when you're not, pause. Notice where in your body you're tightening to keep up the image, and instead, breathe, soften, let the truth have a voice. Because when you're radically honest with your state, without judgment, that's when healing, the real kind, begins to unfold on its own. And in the next chapter, we'll go even deeper into the mystery of integration. What it actually means to transmute instead of eliminate, and how ancient wisdom and neuroscience come together to reveal the true alchemy of the soul. Integration as the real alchemy. Healing isn't about erasing the pain, it's about folding it back into the light. And that's what most people miss, because we're taught to let go, to move on, to release the past, like it's a burden to be dropped. But what if your past isn't something to escape? What if it's a teacher, waiting to be honored, integrated, and finally understood? Here's the difference. To heal is not to delete. To integrate is to transform. Let me explain. Your nervous system, brilliant and loyal, doesn't know the difference between what's happening now and what's already happened, unless you give it a new emotional map. According to neuroscience, until you associate a new feeling with an old memory, the brain keeps looping the same chemical patterns. That's why simply talking about pain doesn't always resolve it. The memory needs a new emotion to soften its edge, and that emotion is born in presence, not performance. Here's the process. Think of a painful memory that still lingers. Now imagine looking at that moment, not from the version of you who lived it, but from the version of you who has remembered your wholeness, the one who sees with compassion, the one who understands that no experience was random, the one who knows that even the darkness was part of your becoming. This isn't imagination, it's reprogramming. You're not pretending it didn't hurt, you're showing your brain, your cells, your soul, that there's more to the story. Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, spoke of how the integration of the shadow is what leads to illumination. He didn't say to fight the darkness, he said to bring light into it, so it becomes part of you, not something that controls you from beneath. Now let's bring this into something real and modern. You've seen people who've been through deep trauma and somehow radiate peace, not because they forgot what happened, but because they included it in their healing. They stopped trying to be the person before the pain and became someone who let the pain shape a deeper presence. This is the alchemy. You're not here to return to who you were. You're here to become more of who you are because of what you've lived, and that only happens through integration. So instead of asking, how do I heal this? Try asking, what is this pain trying to integrate back into my light? That's when the shift happens, not when you remove the wound, but when you reclaim the part of you that was lost inside it. We'll go deeper still, into the ancient memory of wholeness you were born with, and how to access it in a modern world full of distractions, doubts, and disconnection. The forgotten memory of wholeness. Long before the first heartbreak, before the trauma. Before someone told you who you had to be loved, you knew you were whole. You didn't need words for it. It lived in your breath, in your cells, in the way your body belonged to the moment fully. But over time, something happened. You started to forget. Not suddenly, but slowly, subtly, as expectations replaced presence and love became conditional. This forgetting, it wasn't your fault. It was inherited. It was modeled. It was passed down by generations who forgot too. But here's the truth most never tell you. You were never broken. You were just trained to forget your completeness. And remembering that isn't some mystical, distant thing. It's already alive in you. There's a frequency, a vibrational memory, that still knows who you are beneath the layers. It remembers the stillness. It remembers the peace that didn't need a reason. It remembers the light that was never dimmed, only covered. Let me guide you toward that. Sit in silence for a moment, not to escape thought, but to hear what's beneath it. Then ask yourself gently, what in me already knows this truth? You don't need an answer. The asking is the doorway. Because the part of you that remembers, it's not in your mind, it's in your being, and it's been waiting patiently for you to feel it again. Think about this. Have you ever looked at a child lost in play, completely immersed in the now? They're not trying to become anything. They're not performing peace, they're just being. That's your memory speaking, that's your soul reflecting itself back to you, saying, see, that's still possible. That's still you. The quote echoes here. The soul is not wounded, only the personality forgets, and it's the remembering that sets you free. So what if you stop trying to evolve into someone better and simply return to the someone who never needed to be fixed? That return, that sacred homecoming, is not about doing more. It's about letting go of the noise long enough to hear the truth beneath it. You were always the light. You just started believing you were the shadow. And now I want to thank you for walking with me this far. If any part of this video stirred something in you, a memory, a question, a quiet yes, take a moment and share it in the comments. Tell us if you've ever lived this loop. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs right now. Before our closing, we'll explore a new model, one that shifts healing from a never-ending chase to a natural unfolding. A model where remembering leads the way and healing follows as a sacred echo. A new model, healing as a byproduct of remembering. What if healing wasn't something you did, but something that happened naturally when you returned to the truth of who you are? Let that question settle, because in this new model, you don't chase healing. You remember wholeness, and healing becomes a side effect of that remembrance. Think about a flower. It doesn't dig into the soil trying to repair its roots. It doesn't analyze what went wrong last season. It simply responds to the environment. When the sun warms, when the soil softens, when the rain nourishes, it opens. The transformation happens not through effort, but through conditions that allow the truth of its nature to emerge. You're the same. You don't need to fix your inner roots. You need to shift the environment around them, your beliefs, your inner language, your energetic field, so that your essence feels safe to emerge again. And here's where the shift becomes real. Instead of asking, "How do I heal?" ask, "What part of me have I not yet welcomed into the light?" Because everything you resist waits, not to hurt you, but to be included, to be seen, to be loved back into the whole. Let me give you a new language. Instead of saying, "I'm healing my wounds," say, "I'm remembering the parts of me I once abandoned." Instead of saying, "I need to fix this pattern," say, "I'm learning to understand why that pattern tried to protect me." Subtle, yes, but energetically it moves mountains. You begin to shift from force to flow, from rejection to integration, from urgency to presence. And in that space, where nothing is forced and everything is welcomed, the most miraculous kind of healing occurs. The kind you don't control, the kind that just unfolds. Let me close this section with something simple but powerful. Repeat quietly in your mind, "I am not broken. I just forgot. And now I remember." That's the new model. It's not about earning peace. It's about coming home to the peace that was never gone, only buried under layers of forgetting. And now, let's bring everything together. Let's integrate all that's been felt, remembered, and opened, not as an ending, but as the beginning of a new way to walk through this world. You never needed to heal. That was the illusion. You've come this far, and that alone is a sacred act of remembrance. Not everyone chooses to stay with a message like this, because it doesn't promise quick results. It doesn't offer a shiny fix. What it offers is something far more honest. Something your soul has been longing to hear. You never needed to heal. That was the illusion. You just needed to remember. And as that memory returns, not as a thought, but as a frequency, you begin to feel it. The pressure eases, the chasing softens, the ache to finally become begins to dissolve. Because you were never lost. You were always here, waiting for your own gaze to return inward. So let me ask you now, what part of you still believes it's broken? Who gave you that belief? And are you ready to let it go? Not by fighting it, but by loving it home. Because the truth is, this was never about healing. It was about reclaiming the light that never left, the light that still burns beneath every doubt, the stillness that exists beneath every storm, the truth that was never taken, only forgotten. And now, as you stand here, not at the end, but at the edge of a new remembering, I want to thank you for your presence, for your heart, for your willingness to walk through these words with honesty, depth, and open eyes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for walking beside us in this journey of awakening. If this message resonated with you, if it touched something inside that words alone can't reach, let us know in the comments. Share what opened for you. Your truth might be the spark someone else needs to remember their own. Leave a like, subscribe if you feel the call. This is just the first step. There's so much more waiting for you on Echoes of the Path. The next video will take you even deeper into this work of remembrance, energy, and real transformation. You're not at the mercy of the external world. You are the field that transforms what vibrates around you. What you feel is trying to teach you what you forgot. Every emotion is a vibrational key. You don't have to fight what you feel, just learn to decode it, because your energy is a language, and the universe. It's been listening all along, and now, finally, so are you.